Listen, before we go any further, there's something I really need you to hear. What I'm about to share with you took me 75 years to truly understand. And I can tell you right now, it doesn't matter whether you pray 5 times a day or whether you've never once set foot inside a house of worship. This is going to matter to you. So please, just stay with me for a few minutes. Don't scroll past. My name is Joan. I'm 75 years old, and I've spent my whole life wrestling with one question that I believe every single person on this earth asks themselves at some point. What do I actually believe? I grew up in a home where Sunday mornings weren't open for debate. We were in those pews every single week, no exceptions. My father was a deacon. My mother ran Sunday school. I had Bible verses memorized before I could even tie my own shoes. Back then, everything felt so clear and so certain. All the answers seemed to be right there, laid out plainly in black and white. And if you happened to have doubts, well, you kept those to yourself. But here's the thing nobody ever tells you when you're young. Life does not care about your certainty. It comes at you with experiences that simply refuse to fit inside the tidy answers you were handed. When I was 23 years old, I watched my closest friend die in a car accident. He was a genuinely good man, better than me in more ways than I can count. He gave of himself. He was kind. He was generous with everyone around him. And then he was gone, just like that, in an instant. I stood at his funeral listening to all the familiar words about God's plan and a better place waiting for him. And for the very first time in my life, what I felt wasn't sadness. It was anger, because none of it made any sense to me anymore. That anger lit something inside me that I couldn't shut off. I began asking real questions, not the kind you ask in Sunday school, where the approved answer is already understood. I read everything I could get my hands on. The Bible, yes, but also the Quran, Buddhist writings, Hindu philosophy, and even the works of people who held no belief in anything beyond this world. And do you know what I found? Every single one of them carried something true inside it. Every single one. About 30 years ago now, I worked alongside a man who was a devout Muslim. I'll be honest with you, at first I kept my distance. I had all sorts of assumptions in my head about what that meant, about what he must think of me and of my faith. But one evening we found ourselves working late together finishing a project, and we started really talking. He told me about the 5 pillars of his faith, about what prayer genuinely meant to him, about charity and compassion, and giving yourself over to something far greater than your own will. And sitting there at 11 o'clock at night, in that nearly empty office, I realized he was describing the exact same longing I felt every time I got down on my knees to pray. The words were different, the rituals were different, but the hunger, that need to connect to something beyond ourselves, was completely identical. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking I'm going to say all religions are basically the same thing, and that it doesn't really matter what you believe, as long as you're a decent person. That is not what I'm saying, not even close, because here's what 75 years of living has taught me. The differences genuinely do matter. They matter because they represent distinct ways of trying to understand the deep mystery at the heart of existence. Different languages for speaking about things that are nearly impossible to put into words. But here's what matters even more than those differences. Every single spiritual tradition I have ever studied, every single one, arrives at the same essential truth. Love people, help people, don't be cruel, be humble, and accept that you do not hold all the answers. I've attended Jewish seders and felt the weight of thousands of years of tradition and survival in that room. I've sat in meditation alongside Buddhists and discovered a stillness inside myself I never knew was possible. I've worshipped with Pentecostals who expressed their joy in ways that would have made my old Presbyterian pastor profoundly uneasy. And every single time I found something genuine, something real, something that pointed toward truth. But I've also witnessed the other side of all this. I've seen religion turned into a weapon. I've watched families be torn completely apart because someone fell in love outside their faith. I've seen young people thrown out of their own homes for daring to ask honest questions. I've seen wars ignited prejudice dressed up as righteousness, and acts of genuine cruelty carried out, all in the name of God. And every single time, it breaks something in me, because that is not what any of this was ever meant to be. When I was 50 years old, I hit a real crisis. My marriage was under tremendous strain. Money was a constant source of stress. I was drinking far more than I should have been, and one night I found myself standing in my garage at 2 in the morning, and I did something I hadn't done in a very long time. I prayed, but not the way I was taught as a child. I didn't reach for memorized verses or careful religious language. I just talked. I said out loud, "I don't know if you're there. I don't know if you're even listening. I don't know what I believe anymore. But if there is anything real out there at all, I need help right now. I cannot get through this alone." And you want to know what happened? Nothing dramatic. No voice came down from somewhere above. No burning bush appeared. But the very next morning, my neighbor, a man I barely knew, knocked on my front door and asked if I wanted to go grab a cup of coffee. We sat together and talked for 3 full hours. He opened up about his own battle with alcohol, about the road he'd taken to get help, about resources right there in our own community that I didn't even know existed. Was that God working? Was that pure coincidence? Was it simply human kindness arriving at exactly the right moment? I honestly cannot tell you. And here is what I've come to believe. Maybe that question isn't actually the point. The older I get, the less certain I am about the specifics. I don't know whether there is a heaven or a hell. I don't know if we are reincarnated or if this single life is all we're given. I don't know which prayers are the right ones or which day is the true day of rest. And you know what? I've made my peace with that. Because what I do know, what I am completely certain of after 75 years on this earth, is this: the mystery is bigger than any one of us. It is bigger than any book, any building, any tradition that human beings have ever built. And the right response to that mystery is not certainty. It's awe, it's humility, it's wonder. I watch young people today walking away from religion in huge numbers, and I understand why. They've seen the hypocrisy up close. They've felt the judgment. They've been genuinely hurt by people who claim to speak on behalf of God. And I want to say to them, I understand. I really do. But I also want to say this: don't abandon the search for meaning just because some people have poisoned the well. Don't walk away from the big questions just because someone handed you bad answers. You don't have to accept everything you were taught. You don't have to stay inside a tradition that no longer feeds your soul. But please, don't stop asking the questions. Don't stop reaching for connection, for purpose, for the feeling that you belong to something larger than yourself. Because that longing, that isn't religious conditioning. That's human. That's real. I still make my way to church most Sunday mornings, not because I believe that makes me better than anyone who doesn't. Not because I think I have to in order to be saved. I go because there is something about gathering with other people, singing together, sitting in silence together, struggling together with questions that have no easy answers, that feeds something deep inside me. But I also have a Muslim friend I meet for coffee every single Thursday. I read Buddhist teachings before I go to sleep at night. I've learned from atheists who have thought more carefully and more honestly about ethics and human decency than most religious people I've ever met. And here is what all of that has brought me to understand. The goal isn't to arrive at the right answers. The goal is to stay curious, to remain humble, to recognize that every single person you encounter is carrying their own piece of the truth, even when it looks nothing like yours, especially when it looks nothing like yours. My wife passed away 3 years ago. We had been married for 52 years, and in those final weeks when she was in hospice, she looked at me and asked quietly, "Joan, do you think I'm going to see you again?" And I looked back at her, this woman I had loved for more than half my entire life, And I said, I don't know, but I hope so with everything I have. And if there is any real justice in this universe, any love at the very center of existence, then yes, I have to believe yes. Was that faith? Was that hope? Was that a person simply refusing to face the unbearable? Maybe the distinction matters less than we tend to think. What I have come to understand is that the most important thing is not what you believe. It is how you treat people because of what you believe. If your faith makes you more loving, more compassionate, more humble, more willing to give of yourself to others, then it is working exactly the way faith is supposed to work. If it makes you judgmental, cruel, arrogant, or frightened of the world, then something has gone badly wrong somewhere along the way. And that is true whether you are Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, or none of those things at all. I am 75 years old. I've probably got another 10 good years if fortune is on my side. And I am still working it out. I'm still asking questions. I'm still being surprised by where I stumble across truth and beauty and meaning. And I wouldn't change a single thing about that. So whether you are someone whose faith runs deep or someone who thinks all of this is complete nonsense, whether you're somewhere in the middle or still trying to figure out where you stand, I want you to know something. Your questions are completely valid. Your doubts are not a sign of weakness. Your search for meaning is one of the most profoundly human things about you. Don't let anyone take that away from you. Don't let anyone claim to have all the answers when the mystery is so much larger than any human mind is capable of holding. Stay curious, stay humble, love people, help people, be kind, and keep asking the big questions, because those questions are what make us truly human. There's a whole channel right here where people around my age come together to share what they've learned from living, from struggling, from questioning, from growing. If something I said today meant something to you, I'd love for you to subscribe and turn on your notifications. Maybe something we share here will be exactly what you need on your own journey. And if you've got a story of your own, something you believe other people genuinely need to hear, go ahead and fill out the form you'll find in the description below. The next video could be yours. Keep searching, keep questioning, keep being kind.